So I asked Dr. Shapins if I could come. I went to this thing called TAL a few weeks ago, and at the beginning of the program, they were like, why don't you go back after this session and teach your whole faculty about what you learned here? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But then at the end, I really did in 2 days learn a lot of things, two of which really kind of changed my pedagogy, changed my also whole outlook on teaching. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about those today. And that was brought up in our sessions. One was called the personality blind spot, and the other one was called the 11-degree perspective change. So the first one was this thing called a personality blind spot, and we had this presenter, this guy named Mike Rutherford, and he gave us this personality profile called a DISC assessment. I'd never even heard of it, let alone taken it before. And apparently when you take it, it reveals certain things about your leadership style. You know, and it broke it down into 4 different types. There was dominance leadership, influence leadership, steadiness leadership, and conscientious leadership. So after answering some of the questions, it was revealed that I was a dominance leader with strong ties to influence. Certain people were steadiness leaders, other people were conscientious leaders. It really all depended on how you answered the questions. And after it was revealed to us what kind of leader we were, there was different character traits that were associated with that leader, and it gave us like a score out of 28. So I was 25 with dominance, 23 with influence, 16 with steadiness, and 2 with conscientiousness. So rather than just me like giving you my whole report, how does this benefit you or how does this apply to you? Well, after it was revealed to us what everything was, we got to see these different character traits, and I know it's difficult to see here, that apply to us based off of how we answered it. And so when it was revealed to us what our different character traits were based off of our score, he said, I want you to go through all these character traits, I want you to check which ones you think apply to you, and I want you to X which ones you think don't apply to you. So I went through, and of course, I checked all the ones that were positive and X'd all the ones that were negative. Made the most sense to me. So like all these ones, the descriptors that I checked was like direct, and daring, and demanding, and a risk taker, and persuasive. I was like, yeah, I can be a little bit emotional, and I'm trusting and influential, and pleasant and relaxed, and deliberate, and all of these things that I thought was so wonderful about me. And I crossed out all of these things that sounded horrible. Impulsive, domineering, forceful, defiant, self-promoting, non-demonstrative, mobile, rebellious, egocentric, and tactless. And what he said is that the ones that you checked fits into this thing called a Johari window, which I thought sounded really like Middle Eastern and exotic, like an Eastern philosophy. Apparently, it was invented by these 2 Midwestern guys named Joe and Harry, and they just combined their names. But anyway, what he said is that your personality or your leadership or your teaching personality is broken into 4 windows. There's the stuff that you know about yourself and that others know, and that's your public persona. It's probably the most dominant persona that you depict on a regular basis. There's things that you know about yourself that others don't know. Maybe this you change based off of the groups that you're with, different situations, and that's your private persona. Sometimes you maybe keep these character traits hidden. And he said the biggest one which keeps good leaders from becoming great leaders and good teachers from becoming great leaders is the blind spot persona. And what he said is all of these character traits that you X'd when you went through them, probably many of these are your blind spot persona. Doesn't mean all of them are true, but he said these are the things that you don't know about yourself, but that others notice about you. And failure to recognize that blind spot is what makes it so these leaders are doing all these, they think they're doing all these great things, and everybody is like, yeah, you're not as great as you think you are. Teachers are doing they think that they're like motivating their students and doing all these wonderful things, and meanwhile the students are just kind of tuning them out. And so he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the ones that you X'd, and I want you to go home, ask your closest family members, friends, if these character traits apply to you. So when I went home that afternoon, I was going over this, and Caitlin and I were sitting on the couch. That's my fiance. We were looking on the couch, and we were looking through it, and I said, do you think I'm impulsive and domineering sometimes? And she just looked at me and goes, Because like she's really sweet. She didn't want to hurt my feelings, and she's like, well, you know, there's times where you can be a little domineering and impulsive quite a bit. And then she started to go through, and she's like, yeah, you can be defiant. I was like, okay, that's it. You don't have to go. But it was interesting because it kind of became a little joke at our house. Like every time, I'm being impulsive and domineering, Caitlin will just look and go, blind spot, like that. Because, it's kind of a little bit of a joke. But what it created for me is that maybe I thought back at like times in my teaching career when I had, problems with students or problems with colleagues or problems with administrators. And I was like, maybe some of these blind spot character traits was what was creating that barrier. And the challenge that I know you can't take the DISC assessment. They told me the thing was like expensive or something. I would have loved to have gotten one for everybody, but it took a little while. I said, although you don't have access to the DISC assessment, ask some of your close family and friends whom you trust what may be some of your blind spot character traits. Say, like, what are some things that maybe have created conflict with us before? And ask yourself this question: do certain blind spot character traits prevent you from reaching a certain kind of kid in your classroom, or prevent you from working with certain types of colleagues that sometimes you have to work with? And I thought, like, there's a really kind of kid that I don't oftentimes, or I have trouble reaching, and that's a domineering, impulsive kid, one that's like just like me. And it was kind of eye-opening to maybe I need to like look past some of my pride a little bit with how I handle those kids, and don't be so domineering in front of them, because that's more of their character traits. So that it kind of spoke volumes to me about where I need to grow as both as a teacher and a leader. So that was the biggest takeaway that I got from it. It really kind of opened my eyes up, and I'm trying to work on, once again, now that I know what those blind spot character traits are, how to kind of limit them. The second idea was this thing called an 11-degree change, and this was a second presenter. We had a guy by the name of Dr. Craig Barlow, and he's like an associate superintendent in Gwinnett County Schools. He used to be principal of Riverside Elementary, and he only did a 30-minute presentation. But I got more out of this guy's 30-minute presentation than I've ever gotten out of like any 30-minute presentation before. No offense, Dr.
That's okay.
So, and what he said is like, your teaching pedagogy, maybe is that impulsive? A little bit?
Sorry, Dane, I already knew that about you, buddy.
He says your teaching pedagogy is like a compass. You're pointed at 0 degrees north. You're going in the direction that most of the time you've gone the whole way. And that when you step into a PD, or you step into these things that train us, they ask you to make a 180-degree turn. And you're resistant to making a 180-degree turn because it's in the complete opposite direction that you're going in. And what Dr. Barlow explained to us is that in order to make changes in your teaching, you don't have to make a 180-degree turn. You don't have to turn all the way back around going the opposite direction. Sometimes it's just a small 11-degree change that makes the biggest difference. And he kind of used some visuals. He talked about it's the difference from like looking at the road like that and looking at the open highway like that. He taught us it's the same thing as like looking at a bunch of rocks that are just lying on the ground and then seeing a beautiful landscape. That's the 11-degree change. It's not changing your viewpoint completely. It's just making a small change. So the challenge to the faculty that I wanted to say is think about something that you've learned in a PD or in a training that you could implement as an 11-degree change in the next month. It doesn't have to change. Like, for those of you that are like, man, all this technology, they just keep rolling it out. I haven't even mastered the thing that we did 3 years ago. It's not necessarily asking you to change everything, just a small change. And I gave you an example of how I did it. Charlie did a great PD a couple of weeks ago on visual literacy. And I thought, okay, in the next month, I don't have to do visual literacy every day, or every hour, or for every class period. I made one change. And I took it and I used a visual literacy activity on the American Revolution. And here's the thing is, I didn't even do a whole lot of work. I just took what Charlie did and what Megan sent to me and just implemented it. So it's not like you got to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you have great coworkers and they send you stuff, and if you don't have time to look through the emails, I've been guilty of this before. I'm like, okay, that's straight delete, because I don't have time to look over it. But it's not about changing everything. It was about making that one change. And that one 11-degree change wasn't even as a result of me doing a whole lot of work. Like I even put up there, courtesy of Charlie and Holland with the assist from Megan, because really they were the ones that did all the work. But that 11-degree change, I thought that was one change that I could implement in my classroom to make that difference with what I was teaching my students. So I've got another session coming up in November. If I get as much out of the next one, I'd love to come back and tell you guys just some of the things that I learned, but I appreciate it. Just give me a chance to talk to you all today.